Fired. With those words, my husband's shoulders slumped in disappointment. No, 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 he muttered. Isn't that the best development? There's still a chance of winning this battle. I watched as the unscrupulous, bald-headed president confidently declared, "We'll win this on our own. My name is Sammy." The other day, when the microwave went ding, I instinctively said, "Yes, yes," and my daughter gave me a weird look, saying, "Mom's talking to the microwave." I'm a 40-year-old who got weirded out. Oh well, with things like Alexa and Siri, it's not strange to talk to machines these days. It was embarrassing because it was unconscious. But compared to the incredibly embarrassing people I've met in the past, talking to the microwave is not a big deal. This is a story from about 15 years ago. I was working at a certain company. The company itself was small but elite. However, it was a company that excelled in specialized tasks, such as creating programs to protect computer security. It had earned trust from major corporations, and its performance was decent at that time. The internet was not as widespread as it is today, and there was still considerable room for development in areas like security. Hence, the company was reasonably expected to continue growing in the industry. It was during this time that I met my current husband, Simon, who was a colleague. We eventually got married. However, even before marrying him, I had been bothered by advances from the company president. I have to say I was a cute child since childhood, well regarded even in the neighborhood, especially since I didn't gain weight and grew up smoothly. I was often asked by magazine photographers to take snap photos in the streets, being envied by everyone. I had the side effect of easily attracting troublesome men, and the president was one of them. Thanks to that, I don't like my own face. Even if I just said good morning, the president evaluated it like this: "You're a good girl, always greeting me with a smile every day." And he would proudly talk about it to other employees. At that time, the president was 48 years old. He was bald, and the remnants of his hair that remained were plastered onto his forehead. Despite that, he seemed satisfied, showing no intention of fixing it. He wasn't particularly pleasant, and he was arrogant towards disliked employees while being kind to those who brought benefits to the company or pretty girls. He had a somewhat autocratic nature, creating differences among employees for better or worse. I couldn't help but feel a physiological discomfort from the president's actions. However, he was my superior, and I had to get along with him somehow. But how do you deal with a man who mistakenly thinks you're relying on him just because you went to report work? The answer was unclear. So, I managed to avoid the president's favor in a relaxed manner. But when I announced my marriage to my husband, the president started persistently inviting me to meals. Although our workplace romance was kept secret, people who knew about my relationship with my husband knew. However, the fact that the president increased his attempts at this timing showed that he hadn't realized anything about my relationship with my husband until then. It was just things like feeling his gaze or hearing that he liked me from other employees. So, I had intended to handle it with grace, but it became troublesome when it escalated. How about going to a private Italian restaurant? We can spend time without reservation. Just the two of us. I said I would treat you last time, but you refused, saying you didn't have any money. I bought wine from your birth year. This time, let's drink it at my place. It won't cost you anything. Didn't you say you didn't like alcohol? I found a bar where they specialize in sweet cocktails. Let's go together. We can reserve a private room. And there's a spacious space in the back. Hey, when are you going to go out with me alone? Even after repeatedly refusing all these invitations, the president didn't give up. He believed that I was aware of his feelings and was intentionally teasing him, calling me a little devil. Any invitation was too transparent, with an obvious intention to get me drunk and take me to a private room. It was impossible to consider it as part of work. If he suggested going to a crowded park in front of a police station and invited me to drink water while trying to lick salt, although I would hate it, considering it as part of work and attending wasn't completely out of the question. But in the end, would I go? No. Did you catch me? He chuckled. Because he was so persistent, one day I said, "Please give up on me. It's bothering me." Until then, I had avoided expressing my feelings like this because I was afraid that if I did, the president would realize that I was aware of his interest, making the situation more complicated. But on this day, the stress got to me, and my true feelings slipped out. The president, as expected, happily smiled and put his hand around my waist. "You were aware of my feelings all along, deliberately teasing me, you little devil." His creepy touch gave me goosebumps, and without thinking, I pushed the president away and just ran away. Originally, my husband had been worried about the president's actions, suggesting that I quit my job. However, I stubbornly stayed in this company because I wanted to see my husband working up close. My husband was the top technician in the company, and he is currently developing a new system that is expected to double our performance. Once completed, I desired to continue observing my husband, who always works so diligently. If I quit and sought employment at the same company, it would be unthinkable. So despite enduring the creepy president, I wanted to stay. However, it seems like it's time to put an end to that. The next day, I submitted my resignation letter to the company, meaning the president. Since last night, I had already discussed everything with my husband, and he strongly advised me to resign. So, with a determined mindset, I confronted the president. However, the president did not accept it. He tried to retain me by offering various favorable conditions, such as raising my salary or giving me a higher position. If only he had said, "I'll resign so you can stay here," I would have happily remained in this company. What's causing you so much dissatisfaction? "If you want, I can even promote you to be the president's wife," said the president, smirking. I couldn't fathom why that made me uncomfortable. "I've told you many times I'm already married. I'm fed up with being invited to meals or having your hands on my waist." Without thinking, I expressed my true feelings to the president, who responded with, "I see. It's his fault, huh? What, your true love is me, right? I understand that we never shared our feelings before, and you felt inferior in my position as the president. You got married, pulling away because of that," he continued. No, that's not true at all. No need to be embarrassed. I understand everything. I thought he was a pitiful scapegoat for you, and I've endured being kind to you despite being jealous just because you're his wife. But if that's the case, he's unnecessary. Why is the conversation heading in this direction? I never saw you in that way from the beginning. All right. I fully understand your feelings. Well, in that case, I'll accept your resignation. The future president's wife doesn't need to do the work of an ordinary employee. I'll let you enjoy a more comfortable life." Saying that, the president pocketed my resignation letter and disappeared from the president's office. It's hopeless. The communication is unbelievably ineffective. What does he mean by blaming my husband? How did that bald guy interpret things? Oh, wait a minute. Isn't this surprisingly lucky for both me and my husband? Just got married, and now I'm unemployed. My husband smiled, troubled, and said, "What's wrong?" To that, I replied with a smile, "Well then, congratulations. That system you were developing. It was meant to extract suitable customers for the company, right?" "Yeah, but if you're not there, the data won't be updated. There's no point in looking at old customers that haven't been updated for a long time. But the foundation is already there, and someone else can understand and execute the update in less than half a year, right?" Yeah, that's not it. "Hey, how about using that half a year effectively and starting your own business?" To my proposal. My husband looked surprised, but ultimately burst into laughter, saying, "You're quite cunning. That's good. I can work with my husband again." My husband's actions from that point were swift. 30 days after being fired, as the president declared, we used our savings to start a business. During this time, my husband had been talking to the outstanding employees of the previous company. "If you want, how about joining our company?" Well, it was more like headhunting. The bald president, who couldn't even use a computer, was often unaware of the struggles on the front lines and would often impose impossible tasks. Thus, other employees said, If there's any company where you who can do the job better than anyone will understand the side of the workers, it's yours. As a result, almost all employees decided to switch to my husband's company, leaving only the upper management whom the president favored. If I had stayed in that company, I might have been among them. Furthermore, following my suggestion, my husband developed a new system, an upgraded version of the one built in the company. He leveraged his connections from the previous job to not only secure jobs, but also created 2 new security systems and sold them to other companies. Originally, in a field with few competitors, people tended to flock to companies that produced better products. The number of companies requesting work increased rapidly, and within 4 years of starting the business, my husband's company became the industry leader. With the company's performance on the rise, the employees were feeling elated until one day, the president suddenly visited our company. Unable to ignore him, my husband reluctantly guided the president to his workspace, doubling as the president's office. Worried, I also accompanied them. "What can I do for you?" my husband asked as the president immediately bowed with tears and apologized. "I've been watching your actions for the past few years. I now realize that Sammy really hated me. I genuinely regret it." My husband listened quietly. He explained that the previous company was in financial trouble, short of staff, forcing excessive overtime on employees, and unable to pay overtime wages. If asked whether I wanted an apology, it didn't matter at this point. After all, my husband is clearly earning more now than when he was at the previous company, and he has increased the salaries of the employees. No matter what the president said, we're happy now, so it's fine. I had no interest in the president's apology, and it was just a waste of time. "If that's all you came for, could you leave? We're busy too." In response to my husband's words, the president got off the sofa, sat on the floor right there, and pleaded, "Please come back to our company. With you, our performance should recover. Please help us." The president bowed down, rubbing his forehead on the floor, but my husband quietly shook his head. "Since the day I was fired, I'm no longer an employee of your company. I have a responsibility to protect the employees of my own company, so I can't go back to your company. Please do something. I beg you. If you resign as president and your company comes under ours, that's fine," the president suggested desperately. Under no circumstances, my husband replied firmly, "I'm not sure what's best in this situation since it's my first time." "Wait, are you asking me to resign as president?" "Of course. What you did to my wife in the past was an act that trampled on the morale of female employees. Nowadays, overworking is criticized by society. It's only natural. While what happened to me is now considered unacceptable by society, at that time it was quite a gray area. It was an era where it depended on the individual's interpretation. Even if someone claimed they were touched inappropriately, you receive excuses like no ulterior motive, just a stumble, overly conscious woman, or face defamation, denying the truth, and eventually getting fired. The situation with overtime was different until then. Ignoring labor laws and allowing excessive overtime was common. With changes in laws and a gradual shift in public perception towards long working hours being bad, the president's actions would be harshly punished if reported to the appropriate authorities. At first, the president kept repeating, "Isn't there any other option? Please spare me from resigning." But realizing the gravity of his actions, he understood that remaining at the top of the company was impossible. The president stepped down from his position, and my husband absorbed and merged his company. All the employees were taken in, and the overtime pay that couldn't be paid was settled. Here, since our company was flourishing, it actually turned out to be a relief. The president's company had low wages, so the overtime pay wasn't a significant amount. We won. When you proposed that I should start a business when I became unemployed, I never thought we could expand the business enough to crush the president's company. I believed in your ability. Really? Aren't you just trying to flatter me and boost my ego? No way. You caught me. While talking about such things as a couple, I sincerely felt relieved that everything went well. Later, It turned out that someone leaked the conversations in the president's office, which I never told anyone about. The embarrassing actions of the president, who used to flirt with me, became public. Since it's a small company, it didn't make it to the news on television, but it was reported in local newspapers, including the overtime issue. Apparently, more people read local papers than watch TV or read famous magazines. The president became a scorned figure in the local community, and playing president became a trend among kids. It was a surreal game where they persistently flirted with a pretended reluctant girl. If the president saw it, it would be too embarrassing, and he would probably dig a hole to bury himself. By the way, the president was divorced and had a middle school daughter. However, when this game became popular, it seemed that his daughter heard about her father's actions, and she returned home almost like running away. Well, for a sensitive teenage girl, having such a creepy father must be unpleasant. It's a case of reaping what you sow or self-inflicted misfortune. The president, who lost both the company and his daughter, couldn't find work in well-paying companies due to his inability to use a computer. Currently, he's employed as an office worker in a local factory, but he can't handle the central desk work there. So he has become responsible for serving tea to the female president. He who used to condescendingly order female tea servers with a loud "Hey, bring me some tea," is quite a downfall. The president himself probably never imagined a future where he would become a tea server. The employees who switched from the president's company to ours are laughing heartily at the president's dramatic fall from grace. There is no sympathy for him. On the other hand, my husband and I were blessed with 2 children. Our daughter is talkative, making fun of me when I bow my head during a call or respond to the microwave. Well, she's cheeky but cute. Our son is a year younger and seems to excel in computer-related matters like his father. Despite being still young, he creates small programs, so I think he has a promising future. Unbiasedly speaking, it would be nice if he could take over the company. He, however, wants to become a YouTuber, work for Uber Eats, or be a pizza delivery guy. Wait, son, isn't there anything else? While being tossed around by the children every day, we enjoy our happy days. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.